In the few months leading up to our kitchen renovation, I was working on making a sourdough starter. And when it was time to pack up the kitchen, I fed my starter, put a lid on it, and put it in the back of the refrigerator so that it would grow slowly. And I told myself that I would feed it regularly even when I didn't have a kitchen to work in. But it was all lies, lies. I totally lied to myself. Here's what it looks like now.
We need a miracle. It's very important.
If you are not a sourdough person, or even if you are, you might be thinking to yourself that this is past the point of return. So in this video, I'm going to document my attempt to revive my sourdough starter. If you want to see if I can pull a miracle max on this thing, then stay tuned.
Think it'll work?
It would take a miracle.
So after thoroughly examining my sourdough starter, I do not see any signs of mold or harmful bacteria. That grayish liquid that is on the top is called hooch, and it is a common byproduct of sourdough starters. In doing a little research on this and watching some other people revive their sourdough, some will say that you can just stir that hooch in and then, discard some of your starter and feed it. And some people say to pour it off. I am actually going to go ahead and pour off the hooch that has collected on the top of the sourdough starter. In starting this process of reviving my sourdough starter, I am going to get a new jar. I'm gonna get a small jar, and I'm going to remove just a little bit of my sourdough starter, just 25 grams of my starter to that jar. And the rest of this I am going to discard. I'm gonna feed my starter, the 25 grams I pulled out, with 25 grams of filtered water and 25 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. I wanted to start small with just a little bit of starter and a very small feeding, because that should shorten the amount of time that it will take it to double, especially since it's the summer. The high outside is 93 degrees and the temperature in my kitchen is much hotter than it would be in the winter months. Also, I didn't want to waste a bunch of flour. So I just have this covered loosely, have my rubber band on the line where it is right now, and we'll check on it over the next day and see if there's still life in there. It has been 24 hours and my starter has not doubled, but it definitely has risen. It is not quite doubled, but it's risen. It's got some bubbles that I can see. So I am actually going to go ahead and feed it again. I'm gonna do the same thing I did yesterday. I'm gonna discard all but 25 grams of starter, and I'm gonna feed it then with 25 grams of water and 25 grams of flour. It's been a little over 24 hours since I last fed my starter, and it does look like it has doubled in size, because it was just underneath this rubber band. Now it's up to here. Definitely seeing some signs of life in there. Some decent sized bubbles coming up to the surface. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I've done the last few days one more time. I'm gonna discard all but 25 grams. I'm gonna feed it with 25 grams of water and 25 grams of flour. On the fourth day, my starter had doubled, and I figured it was time to go ahead and move it to a bigger jar and work with a little bit more of the starter. So I kept 50 grams of the starter in a clean jar, and I fed it with 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water and set it aside. Good news today. It has not even been 24 hours and my sourdough starter has doubled. It's definitely coming back to life. Look, you can even see more bubbles, more activity here on the jar. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I did yesterday. I am going to discard all but 50 grams of starter and then feed it with 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. Okay, it's been about 24 hours. Feel like it's looking pretty good. Time for another feeding. We're just gonna rinse and repeat. Same thing we did yesterday. Keep 50 grams, feed it with 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. Okay, our little friend here is definitely starting to wake up. Should I name it Wesley? My sourdough starter, it's starting to wake up, but you guys, I did not think this through. I finally have it going again, but we're about to leave on a 6-day family trip over the 4th of July holiday. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start the way I have been the last several days. I'm gonna discard all but 50 grams. And then I'm gonna feed it 1 to 2 to 2. So I'm gonna do 50 grams of starter, 100 grams of water, and 100 grams of flour. And then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator while we're gone. So I'm hoping that it will take not only longer for it to go through all the food, but it'll slow down the feeding process while it's in the refrigerator, and then we'll see how it looks when we get back. So we got back from our trip late last night. It was like 1:30 in the morning. I guess technically it was this morning when we got back. And I was anxious to see how my sourdough starter was doing this morning, and when I opened the refrigerator, I was pleasantly surprised. It does not look like it has risen a lot in the fridge. I guess it's possible it rose and then went back down, but I don't think so. So I have it out on the counter now. So it's in the regular kitchen. It's summer, it's warm, so I'm gonna see how long it takes it to rise. Again, I fed it 1 to 2 to 2, so it's possible it's gonna take a little longer on this rise. We'll see what happens. Okay, it's been a little over 24 hours, and here's where we are with our starter friend. It has actually peaked and it has started to fall. I've noticed in the last few hours that it has fallen some, so I think it has risen as much as it's going to. So I'm gonna feed it. I'm going to keep 100 grams of starter. I'm gonna discard everything but 100 grams. I'm gonna feed it with 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour, except this time I'm going to use some of this flour. This is an organic whole wheat flour. I actually picked it up at Sprouts because I can get it in the bulk bin, so I can just buy a little bit because I don't do a lot of baking with whole wheat flour, and I don't want like a 5-pound bag hanging out in my pantry. So I'll probably do about 20 or 30 grams of this, and then the rest just my regular unbleached all-purpose flour that I've been using, and we'll set it aside and see how it does in the next 24 hours. I've been running around this morning doing some things, and I just now walked by my starter and noticed, look, it has already doubled. It has not even been 24 hours. So that whole wheat little boost I think definitely worked. So I'm gonna do the same thing again. 100 grams of starter, and then 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour with some of that whole wheat flour thrown in the mix. It's also starting to smell a little bit more like I remember it smelling back when it was working properly in the baking. I did not get the last couple days on camera, but I did the same thing. 100 grams of starter, 100 grams of water, 100 grams of flour with a little bit of that wheat flour mixed in, about 20 grams of wheat flour and 80 grams of just regular unbleached all-purpose flour. And I did that for a third time, the third day in a row, last night around 7 o'clock. It is 7 a.m. and you can see it's already doubled. So I think this is a very good sign that it is now only taking 12 hours to double. This morning we have some good bubble action there on the top. It has pretty much doubled overnight. I fed it last night, so less than 24 hours. My concern with starting to bake with it is that it still smells just a little bit vinegary. You know, if you're familiar with sourdough, you probably know what I'm talking about. It still smells just very, very acidic. I mean, I guess we could try a float test and see how it's doing. I never could get the whole float test thing to work very well for me. Mine never did float, and they still did bake some decent bread, so, but we'll try it out. Boop. Oh, it is floating, so I don't know, maybe it is ready to bake some bread.
Perhaps I have the strength after all.
Okay, so I did bake the bread yesterday. I followed a recipe from a website called Alexandra Cooks. I will leave it linked in the description box below. I'm still playing around with the actual baking the bread process. I've tried a few different recipes, a few different techniques. I tend to run into trouble in the bulk fermentation and the shaping process. That's usually where it starts to fall apart for me. So when I took my bread out of the refrigerator today after the cold proof, I was a little disappointed that it seemed kind of flat, but I decided to go ahead and bake it up anyway. And I'm glad I did because I think it actually turned out okay. So this is the point for me where things really started to take a turn in a different direction. This is where things really started to go downhill. I kept trying to make just the standard sourdough bowl loaf. I had intended to attempt another loaf of bread today, so I fed my sourdough starter last night. And unfortunately, I can tell that I've already missed the peak. And every attempt just seemed to get worse and worse. Every attempt just seemed to fall short. Quite literally. It got to the point where I was so frustrated that I took a break from trying to make sourdough bread and just used some of my discard to make banana bread because I just really needed a win. So I have been feeding my sourdough starter regularly, and I decided to try something different yesterday. I fed my starter in the morning. It had doubled. My starter is looking great. It smells great. It's bubbly. So I started another loaf of bread, and I decided to start it at night and do like some stretch and folds and then put it to sleep overnight, like let it bulk ferment overnight, because I feel like my dough is not doubling. Here it is. It still doesn't look like it has doubled. It is sticky, almost like it's over fermented, except there's no evidence that it has like risen and fallen again. I'm just like asking myself, why am I doing this?
Am I going mad?
The reason I started it last night was to give it longer to rise, longer in the bulk fermentation phase, because I thought maybe I'm just not giving it enough time. You know, maybe it just needs more time. And if I start it at night and then let it rise from like, you know, 9 to 7, or it's 9 o'clock now. It's been in the bulk fermentation phase for 12 hours and I just feel like it's the same as it has been. And I took the temperature and it was 71. So the dough is like a little chillier probably. I've been reading that like 72 to 78 is a good sweet spot for that. So I'm gonna give it a little longer, we'll see. I did only use 50 grams of starter. Like I used less starter because I thought this is gonna sit on the counter for a long time. I probably need to use less starter, but I tell you what, I mean, seriously, like, why am I doing this? Because I know how to make bread with commercial yeast. I know how to make bread using just regular yeast, and yeast is cheap. It's not like yeast is super expensive. I can get 2 pounds of active dry yeast on Amazon right now for $15. $15. And it lasts a long time if you store it properly. I know this because I used to do that. Why am I bending over backwards to learn to make sourdough? Because it is a source of frustration in my life right now. I think some of it is just my personality. I've been like this my whole life. I need to figure things out. I need to solve the problem. Like I'm gonna keep working that math problem until I get it right. I'm gonna keep working on this puzzle. I'm gonna keep working on this plan. Now as an adult, it's like working on the meal plan or working on the budget. Like I'm going to keep doing it until I figure out how to solve the problem. It's just like this weird competitive problem solving streak in me, and I think I feel that way about sourdough. I'm thinking people used to bake this hundreds of years ago without scales and like special tools and ovens where you know the exact temperature. So surely me in the 21st century, 43-year-old wife, mom, homemaker, surely I can figure this out, right?
I don't mean to be rude, but this is not as easy as it looks.
Another day, another sourdough attempt. So I've been feeding my starter for a few days now, and I've been trying something different after watching some videos. I have felt since I started this whole thing, like my starters are really runny, like they're really liquidy, even though they're bubbly and they rise and they double, that they just seem kind of liquidy compared to some of the others that I see people using in their baking when I like watch videos and tutorials. So for the last few days, I have been feeding them more based off consistency. I've started with 1-to-1 flour and water, like 100 grams of water, 100 grams of flour, but then I'm putting a lot less of the starter in with it. Instead of putting 100 grams of starter, I might just do 50 or even 25 to 100 gram flour and water feed, because that runny starter was just making everything super runny. So instead of using less water, I was using less starter and getting more of like a paste-like consistency after I fed it. And this morning, one of them is looking really good. It's very bubbly all along the sides of the jar. It's much thicker than the other times when my starter has doubled. So you can kind of see like it's like not runny. So we're gonna try again. I am going to mix up a loaf of bread. I'm gonna use 100 grams of this kind of thicker starter. Instead of using 375 grams of water, I'm only gonna use about 350. I'm gonna start with a little less water too and just see if that helps me with my dough. 500 grams of flour, 10 to 12 grams of salt. I'm gonna mix that up, let it rest, do some stretch and pulls, and then see where we are with the bulk fermentation. See if we can get it to double and not be so sticky. Okay, so I have very high hopes for this one. It looks like it is rising beautifully. I can even see some bubbles, you know, some like big bubbles in there. And it actually looks like it's got kind of like a dome shape. And I don't feel like I've seen that yet, or maybe just I haven't seen it very profoundly in the loaves I've tried to make before. So I'm gonna let this go a little bit longer because it still seems like it's just a smidge sticky. And I wanna see if I can maybe get it to where it's not sticky anymore, and then we will shape it and get it in the fridge. And I don't know, I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I'm feeling okay about this one. It still seems really flat, like it did not rise properly. I am about to be so frustrated with this. Why do people do this? Why? I'm gonna bake it up anyway though. Guess we'll see. Okay, it's another dud and I'm getting very frustrated. I'm getting so frustrated. It's not right. It's just not right yet. And I am trying really hard not to lose my temper, especially since I did get one to bake up right months ago. Before we did our kitchen renovation, when I was first working on this project, I did get one that I feel like turned out well, turned out right. And now I can't do it. Okay, I've lost count of the number of attempts I've made. So this is attempt number I don't know at just a standard sourdough bread. Nothing new about the dough. I basically followed the same process. I just finished my last set of stretch and folds. And this time I put it into a bowl that is the size it needs to be see if this is going to double. Like if this is going to double, if this dough is going to rise and double, it needs to hit the top of this bowl. So that is where I think I'm running into the problem. So hopefully it'll work this time. And I'm just gonna let it go until it hits the top of this bowl. Why would anybody do this to themselves? I don't understand it. 2 college degrees. And I can't make bread. You guys, I finally did it. Just kidding, I used yeast. In all seriousness, my friends, I almost scrapped this entire project because I could not make the sourdough work. But I started to think to myself, what can we learn here? You know, it's the educator in me. How can we turn this into a teachable moment? I got out my Pullman pan today because I want to try making sandwich bread, and I'm using this recipe from a website called Dad What Cooks. I'll leave it linked in the description box. But I increased the ingredients by 50% because this is for the small Pullman pan, which is like a 1-pound loaf pan, and I have the big one. So it's not quite double the size of the smaller one, but it's a lot bigger. So we're gonna try this out. I am going to use my bread maker to make the dough. That's really the reason that I keep my bread maker. It is so great for mixing and kneading. So I have the ingredients in here. I'm gonna pop it in the bread maker, and then we'll see where we are in a few hours. On my channel, expectation versus reality is a common theme and conversation. I am always trying to be realistic about what I can accomplish in my own home in the season that I'm in and with the resources that I have. Woo boy, she is looking fluffy. I feel like sourdough has really been trending, and there was a lot of sourdough tutorial and just general content out there. So my expectation was that this would be a great opportunity for me to move towards more scratch cooking for my family, which has been a big goal. But the reality in my experience is that it just wasn't working for me. I kept thinking I should be able to figure this out because so many other people are able to do it. But the reality was that it was super frustrating, and I know more than one way to make bread. This turned out so absolutely perfect.
Inconceivable!
It tastes delicious. It slices easily in the right size of slice for a sandwich or a piece of toast. It's so good. It was so easy. So even though sourdough was the ideal for me, just because I couldn't achieve making it, doesn't mean I had to completely abandon my goal to make bread products from scratch for my family. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
As you wish.